You clicked this video, so you might be one of those people like me who don't like turkey. I also read that there's a shortage this year, so that means an increase in price. But whatever your case is, I have some ideas that'll still give that Thanksgiving feel without the turkey. I believe that if you incorporate the ingredients that are generally on the Thanksgiving table, or by making your guests' favorite dishes, will make it special. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I make beer can chicken, beef stew, and my son's favorite, shepherd's pie. So let's get started. So I'm going to start off by peeling these potatoes. I'm going to roughly chop them and then put them in boiling water for about 20 minutes or until they're fork tender. While those potatoes boil, I'm going to chop up my vegetables, making sure they're all the same size, that way they cook evenly. Into a hot pan, I'm adding extra virgin olive oil, and then I'm going to sear my meat in batches, making sure I don't crowd the pan. If you add all the meat, it's just going to lower the temperature of your pan, and then you won't get that nice browning you want. I'm going to season with lemon pepper and garlic powder, and I'm just going to eyeball it. So I try to leave the meat alone until I start to see it getting a nice color underneath there, and then I'll break it up. And to collect the juice and the grease coming out of it, I am just going to do it the way my grandma taught me, which is getting a spoon, tilting it, and putting it into a glass jar. And then when it gets full, I go ahead and get rid of it. I know I've seen a video hack where you put a paper towel in there to soak up all the grease, but just be careful because when you get rid of it, it's really hot and you can burn through your plastic bags. I'm gonna go ahead and do the second batch and do the exact same thing. So now that I see that the meat is getting a nice color, I'm going to go ahead and add the vegetables that I chopped up, and I'm going to season those. Now I'm going to incorporate the meat that I cooked previously and season with salt and pepper. I'm going to add a cup of frozen peas, but if you really like peas, you can add more. That's just up to you. A cup of chicken broth. Then I'm gonna stir and turn off the heat. And my potatoes were still not fork tender, so I left them for 2 more minutes. And then I started mashing them. I don't have a potato masher, so I'm just gonna use my spoon. I don't know why, because a cup works better if you don't have a masher. I added 4 tablespoons of butter and seasoned with salt, pepper, and garlic powder. And then I added heavy cream. You can add cream cheese, sour cream. I don't know, some people add ranch. As long as you taste as you go, because one time I added too much salt without tasting, and my mashed potatoes came out salty. That was a sad day. So now that I've seasoned my mashed potatoes to my liking, I'm going to spread it evenly and make sure that I create a seal on those sides so it doesn't bubble over. Using a fork, I'm going to create some texture on the top. Then I'm going to put it in the oven for 10 minutes at 350 and broil for 5. I like the idea of having shepherd's pie for Thanksgiving because it's like a reminder of the turkey stuffing. Plus, it's my son's favorite. So I'm going to start off by mixing 2 tablespoons of lemon pepper seasoning, 1 tablespoon of orange pepper, a teaspoon of garlic powder, and some paprika. And then I'm going to set it aside. Then I'm going to rinse the inside, outside of the chicken, remove anything inside, and then pat it down. Okay, I've washed my hands. Now I'm going to drizzle with olive oil and season with the seasoning that we prepared earlier. This is probably one of the easiest chickens. I like to make it with chicken thighs instead, but for the sake of this video, we're doing it with a whole chicken. I'm only using my left hand to spread the seasoning, that way I don't get anything else dirty. Make sure you get underneath the skin, under the wings, so everything is nice and seasoned. If you're concerned about whether it's safe to use a beer can in the oven because of the paint or because of the BPA that coats the inside of the can, then just use the beer can stand by itself. If you don't have a beer can stand, you can just use the beer on its own, which is what I'm going to do, and both ways work out just fine. So now for the best part, pour out half of the beer for yourself, and then we're going to use the other half to prop up the chicken. Line your pan with aluminum paper. I forgot to do it. It's just for easier cleanup. I put the chicken right in the center, and then I like to flip the wings out so they get nice and crispy. And then I'm going to put it in the oven for 2 hours at 350. But every 30 minutes I take it out and I rotate it. And I also like to squeeze a lime on top. Here's my chicken after 2 hours, and I like my skin to be really crispy, so I'm going to put it back in the oven to broil for 5 minutes. Be careful when you take out the can. I'm using tongs and a spatula. I'm going to push it all the way down. It's going to be half full still because of the drippings, so be careful, it's also hot. Wait 10 minutes before you carve into the chicken and serve with your favorite sides. I'm doing roasted vegetables and mashed potatoes with gravy. I've chopped up my vegetables. I have a quarter of an onion, a smashed garlic. I left my carrots and my potatoes big, that way they hold their shape. I don't want them to turn into mush. I'm not going to use tomato paste, so I chopped up a tomato. I know some people, I've seen some people use ketchup, but I just prefer to use fresh tomatoes. Now I'm going to season this beef chuck with some lemon pepper, orange pepper, garlic powder, paprika, and then I'm going to lightly flour so it gets a nice sear. I'm going to use my cast iron to sear the meat, but if you have a Dutch oven, you can use that. I have a crock pot, but for some reason I feel like when I make it in the oven, it tastes better. I'm going to leave that alone for 3 to 5 minutes, and once it's ready to flip, you'll know because it's not stuck to the pan anymore. Then let the other side sear for another 3 to 5 minutes. And I sear every side, so I'm gonna go ahead and stand that up. On that same pan, I'm gonna saute the onion and the garlic with a tablespoon of chicken bouillon. I saute the tomatoes in there as well for about a minute. Then I remove them and place them on an oven-safe dish, and I place the meat on top of them. I'm adding the carrots and the potatoes that we chopped up earlier. In a bowl, I'm going to mix a cup of chicken broth and a few splashes of Worcestershire sauce, and I'm going to pour that over the top. Then I'm going to cover it tightly with aluminum foil, and it's going to go into the oven at 350 for 3 hours. At the 2-hour mark, I take it out and I mix 2 tablespoons of water and 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. You don't have to do this, but I like to do it because I like to thicken the broth and make it more of a little bit more of a gravy consistency, but you don't have to do this if you don't want to. So I'm just going to try to mix this as best as I can. And I'm just pouring some broth over those vegetables so they don't dry out. I'm going to cover this back up and let it cook for the last hour. And when it's done, it's so easy. You don't have to cut it up. It falls apart on its own. It's a comfort food that gives the Thanksgiving vibes without the turkey. Anyways, I hope you get to try these and enjoy them as much as we do. Happy Thanksgiving.